Thousands of movies have been created throughout the history of cinema. But here's the question. Which 100 truly deserve to be called the greatest movies of all time? Is greatness determined by box office success, by Academy Awards, or by the movies audiences continue watching, discussing, and recommending decades after their release? This countdown gives us one fascinating answer. We're going through IMDb's highest-rated movies, starting at number 100 and moving all the way toward the film audiences have pushed to number 1. Watch the rankings carefully, because some of these positions may surprise you. One of your favorite movies might appear much lower than expected. Another movie you wouldn't even consider a masterpiece might rank above it. And that's what makes this countdown interesting. Something becomes obvious almost immediately. Great cinema doesn't have an expiration date. Movies released generations apart are competing on the same list. Citizen Kane, Reservoir Dogs, American Beauty, Memento, Apocalypse Now, Modern Times, different generations, different directors, different filmmaking techniques, completely different stories. Yet decades later, audiences are still watching them. Technology changes, cameras change, visual effects change. Even the way audiences consume movies has changed. But powerful storytelling can survive all of it. And as we move higher through the countdown, the competition becomes much stronger. Joker, Amadeus, The Dark Knight Rises, Aliens, Avengers, Infinity War, Witness for the Prosecution, Sunset Boulevard, The Lives of Others. Notice something else. There is no single genre dominating this list. We have action, crime, drama, science fiction, war movies, thrillers, and even animation. That tells us something important. A movie doesn't become unforgettable simply because of its genre or its budget. What matters is what happens to us while we're watching it. Does it make us laugh? Does it disturb us? Does it make us emotional? Or does it leave us thinking about the story days after the credits have finished? That's where great movies separate themselves from ordinary ones. And now we're moving into even stronger territory. The Pianist, Léon, The Professional, Parasite, Spirited Away, Terminator 2, Judgment Day, City of God, Saving Private Ryan, The Silence of the Lambs, Interstellar, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Stop for a second and think about this. How many movies on this list have you actually watched? 10? 20? 50? Maybe you've watched the entire IMDb Top 100. Keep your number in mind. Another fascinating part of this ranking is how old and new movies sit right beside each other. A movie's release year doesn't determine its greatness. Some films become enormous hits immediately. Others need years before audiences fully recognize what made them special. That's why rankings like this continue evolving. New viewers vote. Old classics are rediscovered by younger generations. New movies enter the conversation. But a small group of films somehow remain near the top year after year. Now the ratings begin climbing even higher. Inception. Christopher Nolan took a simple question about dreams and turned it into one of modern cinema's most ambitious science fiction blockbusters. A dream inside a dream, inside another level of reality. And years after the movie's release, audiences are still debating that final spinning top. Was Cobb finally back in reality? Or was he still dreaming? That's the kind of question that keeps a movie alive long after its release. Then comes Fight Club. Released in 1999, its cultural reputation grew dramatically in the years that followed. Brad Pitt and Edward Norton lead a story exploring identity, consumer culture, rebellion, and the darker corners of the human mind. And then, Forrest Gump. Tom Hanks plays an apparently ordinary man whose extraordinary journey crosses some of the most recognizable moments in modern American history. Comedy, drama, romance, history. The movie somehow brings all of them together. And beneath everything is a simple idea. We never completely know what life is going to give us next. But now, we're getting close to the top 10. And from this point forward, almost every position can start an argument among serious movie fans. The Lord of the Rings, Schindler's List, The Dark Knight. These aren't simply popular movies. Each one expanded what audiences believed its genre could accomplish. The Lord of the Rings demonstrated the extraordinary scale that fantasy filmmaking could achieve. Schindler's List confronted one of history's darkest periods through an intensely human story. And The Dark Knight changed expectations for superhero movies. Yes, it's a Batman movie. But underneath the costumes is an intense crime thriller about morality, chaos, and the choices people make under pressure. And then there's Heath Ledger. His performance as the Joker became one of the most celebrated villain performances in modern movie history. For many fans, The Dark Knight could easily be number one. But according to this ranking, it isn't. We're now approaching the very top. The movies remaining aren't simply highly rated. They're part of cinema history. At number 2, The Godfather, released in 1972, directed by Francis Ford Coppola, Marlon Brando, Al Pacino, James Caan, Robert Duvall. The story of a mafia family became something much larger, a story about power, family, loyalty, betrayal, and transformation. Michael Corleone's journey from reluctant outsider to the center of the Corleone Empire remains one of cinema's most famous character arcs. More than half a century after its release, The Godfather is still routinely discussed as one of the greatest films ever created. Its IMDb rating sits around an extraordinary 9.2. For millions of movie fans, this is the greatest movie ever made. But on IMDb, there is still one movie above it. So what could possibly defeat The Godfather? It's not a superhero blockbuster. It's not a science fiction spectacle. And it isn't another gangster epic. It's the story of a man inside a prison, The Shawshank Redemption, released in 1994, starring Tim Robbins and Morgan Freeman. And here's the remarkable part. The movie we now see sitting at the top of IMDb wasn't a massive theatrical blockbuster when it first arrived. Its reputation grew afterward, through home video, television, and perhaps most importantly, word of mouth. One viewer watched it and recommended it to another. Then another generation discovered it, and another. Slowly, The Shawshank Redemption became something much larger than its original theatrical performance suggested. Why? Because underneath the prison walls, this isn't really just a prison story. It's about friendship, injustice, perseverance, freedom, and above everything else, hope. The belief that even when someone's circumstances appear hopeless, the human spirit doesn't necessarily have to surrender. That's why new audiences continue discovering this movie decades later. And that's why The Shawshank Redemption sits at approximately 9.3 on IMDb. Number 1, The Shawshank Redemption. But here's the important part. IMDb doesn't get the final word. You do. Does The Shawshank Redemption genuinely deserve to be called the greatest movie of all time? Or should The Godfather be number 1, The Dark Knight, Schindler's List, Forrest Gump, Inception? Or is your greatest movie not even included in this top 100? Put your answer in the comments. But there's one rule. Choose only one movie. IMDb has already chosen its number 1. Now it's your turn. What's yours?